Oh.
She's famous on TikTok and Instagram.
Ooh.
She's known as Condiment Claire.
Tell me more.
She's awesome. So we came across her when we moved to the UK. Someone was like, you should get in touch with Condiment Claire. She's amazing. And then we did a bit of stalking and we thought, we should get in touch with Condiment Claire. She looks great. So I'm going to pronounce her name wrong. I really hope I don't. She's sort of French/American/British, like very worldly, isn't she?
When she was talking, I was like, what haven't you done? Yeah.
She's amazing. And her name is Claire Dinhut. And she said, it's kind of like Claire Donut. So hopefully she listens to this and isn't like, what
Excuse
the hell?
me, yeah. But she's called Condiment Claire because during lockdown started taking pictures of all the condiments that she was making in her kitchen. And so it's quite interesting what people resonated towards in lockdown. But yes, she has just such an interesting life, career, presence. She was such a breath of fresh air to talk to, and we could have talked to her for hours.
What I really liked about this interview is that she does invest, and she's also reasonably clued up for someone who doesn't think that she is. But she's always been surrounded, a lot of her friends work in the finance space and investing. So she has dabbled in investing, had some really great investments, had some really shocking ones. But I just like the idea, her approach is like, I want to learn, even with her accountant, whenever he does anything, she's like, oh, can you tell me what you're doing? Because I want to understand what it is. And I really like that. She's just got a switched on energy about her and just funny and interesting and talented. So she's going to be massive one day and we can say we're friends with her. Yes. Anyway, here is Condiment Claire. Okay, so came out of university, went to Harvard, and then how did you kind of morph into being a talent? I know that's a strange way to put it, but you said you started kind of in presenting, but now have very much transitioned into content creation. So how did that happen?
So all throughout university, I was the annoying person who kept emailing her dream job, being like, hi, pay attention to me, notice me, notice me, notice me. And that was Anthony Bourdain's production company. Because I watched him growing up. I was like, that's the dream job. Like, if you can travel the world and learn about different places, but through the people who actually live there, like not going on a random tour, not going on a fancy vacation, just how do you actually get to know a certain people? If it's not through like a history book, how do you do that? And he was doing that on screen by like eating food too and eating whatever. And I was like, I love that. And finally, my last 2 weeks of university, I got an email back and they were like, we're based in New York. Let's figure something out. Just come to New York. And I was like, okay. And my best friend was moving to New York. We got in a flat together. On my graduation trip, I opened the New York Times one day and he had passed away. And so I was like, oh no. Number one thing is that my idol just passed away. This is so upsetting. This is so sad. And then I was like, oh, and I don't have a job. So I had a flat in New York. And then I started working at Radical Media, which was this like unscripted production company. And I absolutely loved what I was doing there. I kind of was like thrown in as a PA, but doing a lot of, honestly, producer work. But it was great because it taught me so many things just by kind of being thrown in the deep end, doing a lot of unscripted. So like food, travel, music, stuff like that. And I realized like, you know what? I really love this. And then I shifted to an agency in New York. And the office life, let's just say, it really killed my soul. But I did it. I mean, I had to make a living. I had to pay for my apartment and that. So did it. And then one day I met with this Greek producer who was in town. I'd never met him before. And he was like, so like, what are you doing now? And I was explaining to him and he was like, well, what do you really want to do? And I was like, I really want to be in unscripted television. So my mom's mom passed away a month before I was born. And she was 52, like in her sleep, super random. And I was
This is so random.
Yeah. And I've always sought out older people. Like I love old people. Like I'm pretty sure I'm a grandfather myself.
Same. I love old people. Oh my God. If I see them holding hands or I love talking to them, I think you can learn so much from old people.
So much. And they're also just so wise. I met with this Greek producer and he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, listen, I would love to do a show about grandmothers and how like their food might be like on a plate, but you know it's going to taste better than anything you've ever had. And like everyone's grandma has their favorite dish. Yeah. And he was like, would you want to come to Greece and do this since you like never got to meet like your own Greek grandmother? Long story short, I was like, yes, I would love to do that. And he was like, great. Want to come on Monday? This was a Friday. I was like, sir, I need to give my 2 weeks notice at work.
Sir,
like
you must have been so good at your job for a Greek producer to be like, hey, by the way, what do you want to do? Cool, and make it happen. I mean, that for anyone that doesn't know anything about the entertainment or media world, that's not a thing. Like you must have had a pretty brilliant reputation for being good at what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, so I went to Greece for like 3-4 months, and then it was Christmas, so I came home. And over the holidays, I was in LA, and then ended up meeting this Mexican producer. And he was like, I love this thing that you're doing in Greece. He saw like some snippets. He's like, would you want to do this in Mexico City? And I was like, yeah.
So you essentially started hopping around the world, creating food shows in different countries.
Well, so I shot a reel in both Greece and Mexico City, and then the pandemic happened, which cut the Mexico City one short. So we kind of finagled together like a little bit of a reel.
Hold on, reel for those listening. You're not meaning an Instagram reel. You mean a show reel.
Yes, a show reel. Sorry, not an Instagram reel. Oh, no, sorry. Yes, a show reel. So we kind of like finagled something, kind of put it all together. And then obviously the pandemic hits, and who's vulnerable? The elderly. So those shows get axed because you can't put the elderly just in harm's way.
Hold on, before we continue, I'd like to know, when you went to Greece and Mexico, were you given a salary? Were you paid? Was it like, do this for free, and then if this takes off, then you get, how did that work?
It was fully for free.
Yeah, okay.
In Greece and in Mexico City, I was having my flights paid for and my hotel room, which was great. And I was having the experience of like every day being able to be with old people, which I think after a few years in New York at like an office job, I really needed that. And so I was just very happy not spending money, but not making any either. It was kind of where it's like, you know what? I'm in this great hotel room. I'm having dinner with the team every single night. I'm having great experiences. I know this is a temporary thing, and hopefully something will come of it where then I will get paid and start making more. Yeah. And then when the shows both went poof because of the pandemic, I was like, oh God. And like, what now? And at that time, I actually got a call from one of the streamers, and they're like, hey, we also have a show about grandmothers. We don't like our hosts. Would you want to host this show?
What is happening? I've got to start watching some of your stuff. She must be like the best TV presenter that's ever lived.
I thought you were good.
No, God, no. I'm a fumbling child.
Do you want a job?
But they basically were like, well, how many followers do you have? We'd love to have you as the host. And I was like, I have a private Instagram of like 600 friends. Like, I don't have a following. And they're like, oh, sorry. Nowadays, like, you need a following if you want to host a show.
Why would they even ask you in the first place?
So anyways, that's when I kind of realized like, oh my God, if I really want to do this as a career, I have to put myself out there and I have to start on social media. And at the time that was like kind of it was mid 2020, that's when people were starting on TikTok and people were blowing up. But usually it was like, I don't know, you think of it and you were like, think of the dances and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I can gain a following fast on this. So let me just start. And my first username was actually Claire from Where, because people couldn't figure out like where I was from. And then I moved to London, and lockdown lasted forever here. And one of my best friends, it's actually her birthday today.
Oh, what's her name?
Shout out Amanda.
Oh, Amanda, happy birthday. Imagine if you're like, and spin the birthday wheel. What song would you like?
But she was like, Claire, it's not normal how many jars you have. Like, you need to post a photo of all of your jars on Instagram to your story. This is going to be so funny. Just do it. And one night, like, I was like, okay. So I realized I took a photo of probably like, 56 jars, went to bed. And the next day, my Instagram, still private at the time, was flooded with messages, but like from random boys I hadn't spoken to since I was like 13.
They're like jar fetishes. They're like, ooh, hello.
But they were like, it's my mom's birthday on Sunday. She loves this brand of jam. Like, what are your top 3? And then like my dad's friends being like, hey, I'm hosting a barbecue in 2 weeks, COVID friendly. Like, what are your 5 condiments you would put out for like this type of sausage? Like, so weird. I was like, wow. And so then I was like, okay. So then on my TikTok, I started doing little videos here and there, probably like once a week, and just like hashtagging Condiment Claire. Because it just, at this point, we were all delirious. Like, I didn't know what was happening in the world. I was like,
let us see a time.
I was like, I'm going to roll with this. And then once my TikTok really started growing, whenever I got recognized, people would be like, you're the condiment girl, you're Condiment Claire. And so then I realized, you know what? Like, if this is what people are remembering, I'm going to roll with it. Because I realized, like, you Google condiment, there's no one doing just condiments. Obviously, that wasn't paying the bills at the time. So I was working for a Spanish production company just virtually based in Madrid. They were working with the US a lot and with France. So I was doing like some translation here and there for them. And I went to this TV festival 2 summers ago now it was. Wow. And at this dinner party, I sat next to this Italian man. And we were chit-chatting at dinner, and everyone was American at this dinner. And I was speaking to all the waiters in Italian. And he was like, how come you speak Italian? And I told him, well, I lived in Rome for a few years when I was younger. And so we were chit-chatting in Italian all dinner. All of the Americans kind of started peeling off because they had just flown in. Everyone was jet lagged. Meanwhile, like, I'm coming from London. I was like, I'm ready to go. Like, I will eat and drink with you all night if need be. And he was like, well, what do you do? What do you want to do? And I was like, oh my God, flashback to when the Greek guy said the exact same thing. And I was like, I want to do food and travel television. And I think it'd be really neat to learn about like different regions and this and that. And he was like, have you seen the Stanley Tucci show? And I had seen it and I really liked it. But I think there's a certain level of, I think there's a way to do high and low in a show. And I felt like that show was stunning, but showed a lot of high in the sense like you go to Florence, the average person isn't going to be able to have cocktails at the Four Seasons. And I was like, it would be great to show Italy for like the low Italy too, and like show the really simple dishes and things like that you could do there. And he was like, I love that idea. I was like, okay, great, whatever. Went home, then was in London, and I get a random email from him one day being like, hey, so I think you could co-host the show with X chef. Want to come to Italy next week?
Joking.
And so
I'm
then
absolutely shocked by this. And also, how are you not just like so arrogant? I'd be like, yeah, so like I just go to dinners and get picked up for shows on Netflix. You know, no big deal.
But so then we went through 3 rounds of chefs of like who would work well for the show in particular. And so I was always going back and forth to Italy. Again, not getting paid at the time, but getting flights paid and accommodation paid. So I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just like, at this point, I'm just going to roll with it. Like, I've gone this far. I can't give up now. And so I was doing that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Finally, we found this chef, Max Mariola, who's now huge on TikTok. And he and I shot a pilot all throughout Italy. It was a great experience. And then last October, November, we tried to sell it at this film festival in Italy. We'll see. Like, I think things take time. And also there's like a huge strike going on in the US right now.
So it's a fully produced, created show that needs to be sold. Is that essentially you've got like your product that you've created after that trip?
It's pretty much all shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the sort of opportunity that I wasn't not going to take. And I think regardless of what happens with it, I'm so grateful that I had that experience and met those people as well. Because like everyone was so great.
Was there ever a time like when you said everything was being paid for, but you weren't being paid? Was there ever a time when you were like, oh gosh, I can't keep doing this?
Like at this point, it's like I keep getting pushed down. I keep getting back up, but it's kind of gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, financially it's tough. However, that's when my TikTok was also starting to pop off. So I was getting little brand deals here and there. And like, I would not be able to make a living off of TikTok on its own at this stage, even though I have nearly 600K, because I'm very...
We got a long way to go, girl.
I look at it back like we've got 7,000.
No, but I'm very much an anomaly in that sense because I am very particular as to who I partner with or what brand deals I do accept, mainly because like I've always wanted to stay really authentic. Like I see social media as I never thought I would do this. To me, this was just a great little way to kind of keep paying rent and doing that while I was off doing whatever it was that I wanted to do and pursue television and all that. So if I'm going to get paid for a brand deal or anything like that, it's going to be with a company that I actually use and that I actually really would love to promote. And I feel very lucky that I started TikTok when nothing else was kind of going on. So I had that chance to have the time. And instead of seeing that time as like, oh God, I'm working for another production company just like virtually because I can't be in the office and this and that, what do I do all day? And that was make random TikToks, which kind of went into Condiment TikToks, which now in of itself, like Condiment Claire is a job, which is wild to me. Weeks in New York where I would get to the office at like 6:37 and usually leave around 11-ish. If I was doing overtime on a week, I would make almost $900 in a week before taxes, which again, it's great. It's money. Regardless, it's money. But seeing how now I can make one video in the span of like an hour, edits, all of that, maybe, more than an hour if I'm doing like a longer video, that can make me that equivalent amount of working all day and night is kind of crazy. And I never thought that would be a position that I would be in, because I never, again, expected to do this. And it kind of just reminds me that like I got knocked down quite a bit, and it's just about keeping at it if you know what it is you really like. And sometimes
what your passion is, and it's like,
and sometimes you're going to be doing something that you never expected you would do, and you just go, okay, I'm so happy to do whatever at this point.
I think there's also something in, firstly, you had to support yourself financially in a situation where you weren't like thriving money-wise, and you were really persistent with what you knew you wanted to do, like time and time again. You were like, I want to travel and create content, and I want to learn from old people, and you really knew what that was. I think a lot of people are aware of what they want to do, but maybe aren't so outright in saying it, or
they're scared to take the leap.
And also I think the idea of pushing through that financial instability or uncertainty, knowing that hopefully you can make it in what you really want to do.
It's being uncomfortable and realizing that, leaning into that uncomfortableness and the uncertainty, which
because it's super inspiring to hear how much you were knocked down and kept going, and had no one was saying, hey, here's a good paycheck. You were like, wow, this is hard, but you kept going.
I mean, I think what I will say is I'm super lucky that I worked before all of these opportunities came about. So, I mean, I wasn't making good money whatsoever, but I did have jobs prior. So I knew that I had a bank account that had X amount of money. And then I was going off and traveling and not spending money because, again, accommodation and flights were being taken care of, but I wasn't adding to that said bank account. And I was just like, you know what? It feels like my life is on pause, but that's okay. If I'm pausing my financial life at the moment, but not depleting it, I'm okay with that, and I'm going to take that risk because the benefits can be so great in the future. I would say I'm definitely not a financially risky person, though, so this is very off-brand. Like, I am very much a saver. I have never taken money out of any of my investments because the idea of that stresses me out. Being raised in between LA and the French countryside was definitely is determined how I spend money, because I think I've always been taught to save money, to be very conscious as to how I use it. But I definitely like to play, I guess I call them games. They're not really games, but I like to play games with my money in the sense, like when I go to a farmer's market, I want to buy beautiful produce, but I can't get carried away. So I'll go to the farmer's market and have 20 pounds in my pocket and be like, I'm not going to spend more than this. So let's see, like, do I want like this punnet of strawberries or do I want this fennel? And you just do little things like that where you're like, okay, how am I going to spend this money? And then if you come home with 5 pounds, you're like, ooh, I did a good job. I kind of made this money today.
What other kind of money-saving hacks do you have?
This is London specific, but I have the Pret monthly membership. It started during the pandemic. I think it was it 10 pounds a month or 20 pounds a month? And you get up to 5 coffees a day or 5 drinks, any drink on the menu. So like smoothies, iced coffees, cappuccinos. You can add all the non-dairy milks. Each one is like almost 4 pounds. And you can get up to 5 a day.
This is such a good money saving.
Should we get a Curve one?
Yeah. Health and well-being account.
But the best part is too, is like, usually you'll see like a lot of homeless people at Pret or on high streets. Like if I am lucky enough to be able to pay X amount a month to get this membership, I may as well share it if I can. And I obviously can with 5 a day.
We mentioned before the podcast that you get a lot of different revenue streams from different countries. So I'm intrigued to know how you deal with different currencies, how you negotiate different prices.
And is this across TikTok and also your like TV creation?
Yeah, so it was definitely very tricky when I moved here because all of my revenue streams were in dollars because
US dollars. Yeah.
Because a very, very high percentage of my following is in the US. And then when I was working for the Spanish production company, that was in euros. And now a lot of brand deals that I do are actually in pounds because I'm someone who I really don't feel comfortable when it comes to just financial knowledge. I would say a lot of my friends like are in the financy world in New York and I always have to ask them for advice. But I've just started a Wise account for my company, which is very exciting and it makes my life so much easier because Wise is basically a place where you can hold different currencies. So I have a pound, a euro, and a dollar account. And you just have like the Apple Pay card. And whenever you're in whatever country, it will automatically know what currency to pay in.
Go Wise. Great setup.
You say you're not particularly financially literate. Do you think that's something that you will hire a professional to be, doing it for your business? Do you think that it's something that you're interested in learning about yourself? Like, how do you feel about money with relation to your job and what you're doing with your life? Because it's so, especially if you're like pitching shows or you're having to pitch to brands for social media, like you're always having to talk about money. So Now that you're coming into more of it, I assume, how is that going to change your relationship with it?
When I say I'm not financially literate, it's also in comparison to all of my friends who are wildly intelligent about it. And I think it's just about like educating myself. And I've always invested. And if I'm stuck on something that I'm so confused about, instead of kind of ignoring it and like pushing that email away or just throwing that envelope away, I'm just like, okay, what do I do now? I do now have an accountant in the US that's helping me with all like the businessy side of things. But I'll always tell him like, okay, every time you do something for whether it's like tax related or anything like that, like please tell me, because I also want to know.
It's so
like,
good because a lot of people are like, oh, tax, oh my gosh.
It scares me so much to not understand. Even if I hear it, sometimes it doesn't process. It's one of those things that just like doesn't click. And so I just need to keep training myself.
But you've always invested.
So so there's an app in the US called Robinhood.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. And I was starting with like $10 investments. Like if a share was $10 or $16 or $50, at the beginning I was like, you know what? I just want to teach myself how to do this. So I'm going to put $500 in there. This was when I was still in college. I was like, I'm going to put $500 in here and just see like if I buy stocks that I like know of. So like Netflix, Apple, Disney, stuff like that. Let me just see what the stock market is, because I don't know. Like, let me just see.
Gosh, that's cool. I feel like not many people have that.
Yeah.
Either they're inquisitive or but they just don't actually action it, especially if they don't know enough.
But
that's
it's good starting
amazing.
with such a small amount, because that's when you do learn.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you lose it, it's not the end of the world. You've learnt probably some great lessons. But it's like, if you just don't start because you're too scared, then you probably never start.
But is Robinhood quite well known and a lot of your friends were doing it?
Oh yeah.
It's like Sharesies.
I was very much one of the last ones to do it. Because again, a lot of my friends are in this financing world.
Right.
And they were like, you don't have a Robinhood? And I was like, no, I don't. But so when I started, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this my way. They're investing a lot more money than I am. Because again, even out of college, like working in media versus working in Wall Street, you're going to make a lot less money. So I wasn't on the same financial level as they were. I was seeing what they were doing. And I was like, how can I do this on my own with less money and just see how to do it myself, just teach myself. So I also, one, don't sound like an idiot in comparison to them, but also know for the long run, like when I do make a significant investment, that I'll know what I'm doing at least.
That's so cool.
And now I have quite a big chunk of money in there. Again, the stock market isn't doing that great at the moment. So at one stage, like during the pandemic, I was up like 14%, and I had started like 3 years before. And I was like, this is great. I love investing. But again, I've always told myself that the money that's in there is kind of like grad school to me. Like I never took economics classes. I never did anything school related for finance. This was like, okay, I'm just going to throw myself in the deep end and I'm going to allocate this money to just teaching myself. I was like, a course would be like a university course would have been more expensive if I were going to do like another year of school. And so I was like, I'm just going to do this. And it's been good because I've definitely made really dumb investments on things that I really love. So I was like, I'm just going to really back them and let's see.
Do you have any examples of things you're like, oh, that wasn't
Sweet
great?
Green killed me. Sweet Green has killed me. The salad company. I love them so much. I'm their biggest fan. I did a brand deal with them this year and it was like one of the greatest moments because I was like, wow, like as a fan, when they DM me, I was like, Sweet Green is DMing me. I was like, this is the best DM I've ever gotten. Yeah, that's really killed me.
Oh no. How much did you put into it?
I put in a couple thousand.
And you haven't got, obviously it's gone down a lot.
Yeah, I think it's gone down like a good
Yikes.
50, 60%.
Shit. God, it sucks sometimes when it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because it was like, okay, we're going to go public on this day. And I was like, I'm ready. I was like, I'm ready to go.
Oh, so you went in on an IPO. Like as soon as they listed it as a public company, you were like, I'm in.
I was like, I'm their biggest fan.
Cool.
So yes. But again, I'm not going to take that money out because I have faith. Like all the brands that I love, even if they're not doing well right now, you never know. In 30 years they could. And I could tell my kids one day, I invested in Sweet Green. And
do you invest in any other condiment companies?
Not other condiment. I would say a lot of media companies. Just because it's a world I feel comfortable.
When you say media, do you mean like a podcast company or a TV company or
like a Netflix?
Yeah, like a Netflix, a Disney. I think there are certain giants in that world that are always good to invest in.
I love Netflix. I've invested in Netflix.
Yeah. Tesla's done great for me.
Cool.
It's great that this is a great example of using an industry you know well, or a space you know well, a sector you know well, and investing in that. Because it's like you'd be able to see which streaming providers are doing the best, which media companies are doing the best, which ones are killing it, which ones maybe were killing it and aren't.
Yeah,
the growth is not
really
looking that good, and so when to sell and buy. And so I think this is a really good example of using your interests in an investing sense, and not, you don't have to invest in everything and anything. It's like,
The one investment that I'm so mad about, because this was the first investment that I ever made on Robinhood. And had I had the money, I would have invested a lot more in it because I felt super confident in it. But I was like, I'm just going to buy one share because I just want to teach myself. And so I only invested $20 in it. It was in MGM because there's the media aspect and all the casinos.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, okay, the pandemic was just starting. I was like, after the pandemic, this is going to pop off because people are going to want to like, one, like go to movies, two, go and live their best life at a casino. And now it's at $44, I think it is. But I'm like, I'm so glad I have $44 now. I put in 20.
Yeah, I hate that. I find Vic's always like, nope, you can't think like that. And I'm like, I know, but what if I've done more?
Yeah.
It's like people always ask, what's your worst investment decision? And it's usually something that I didn't back myself in enough. You know, it's not just that everyone thinks your worst decision is when you lose money, but you can lose money by not investing in something that's done well because you didn't want to take that risk. So it's...
Yeah. And so from where you are now, like you've obviously invested quite, you know, regularly over time. Would you say that, you know, as your career progresses and financially you're in a more comfortable position where you can do bigger lump sums, is that something you think you'd continue to do yourself? Or do you think that you would get a professional to do it for you? Like what's your...
I think I would get a professional, but I'm also so type A. And I think it's, if I have the financial stability where I'm able to do that, I would love to continue doing it myself, at least some of it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think if it were 50-50, that would be an ideal situation because I do know there are certain people who are trained to do this. And I kind of see it as, you know what? This is money where when I put money in my Robinhood, I'm like, this is money that I'm spending. It's done. It's gone forever. I just see it as like, it's gone forever. I don't see it as a bank account that I have. And so I'll look at it during the day and be like, oh, okay. Like again, it's a class. It's how I teach myself. I'm like, okay, what world are doing well? What worlds aren't? How's the stock market looking? There's also crypto on there. So it's like when the whole crypto craze was happening, I was like, okay, like I'm just going to see. So I got some Bitcoin, I got some Ethereum and just kind of taught myself.
I know,
about
same.
it.
I'm also just very impressed that you were in a slightly unstable financial position for some time and probably are just starting to feel a little bit more secure in your financial future through the things that you really want to do as a career. And yet throughout that time, you were still putting money aside to invest. I think that's really interesting because often, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are feeling really stretched financially, but it's a really good example of even if it is $10 or $20, that actually can make a massive difference.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say like, again, like I just said, it's the idea of when I do invest money, I don't see it as money that I have. I see it as like, okay, those 16 MGM dollars, I went to the grocery store and I bought a bunch of carrots and there you go. Like a lot of carrots. And then it's kind of like a pleasant surprise when you do see your stock and you're like, okay, it's done well or it's done badly. And when it does badly, you kind of just think, okay, well, let me see what it's like in a year.
It's also really good that you're surrounded by people who, or friends that worked on Wall Street that were really financially literate and you weren't put off. You know, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I'm from a different world or I've got a different skill set and this is speaking a different language. Whereas you kind of like leaned into that and you're like, teach me, help me, you know, like, and it's quite refreshing because everyone has different skill sets and it's just that sometimes finance people like to talk about their skill set as being the best and it's not. It's like, you know, like they like to think that they are much more knowledgeable and it's like,
It also sounds like your friends encouraged you to get into it, which I think is really cool.
It's really nice.
I think it was mainly that because I definitely was late to the game when it came to investing just because I didn't quite understand it and I didn't feel comfortable. And finally, after seeing so many people around me just doing it, just like literally being at brunch and pulling up their Robinhood, just seeing, and I was like, okay, like, what is that? Like, okay. And then them also teaching me, like my friend helped me set it up and was like, okay, we're going to invest in this together first and you'll see. And like, then you can look at all these different websites to kind of teach you about stocks. And again, the pandemic was a really good time to educate myself on that. Went on a lot of weird internet deep dives.
A very productive lockdown.
Yeah. Gosh,
Blew up on TikTok, learn about investing, like all of the things. I think that another really cool reminder, which is what you were just talking about, is to talk to your friends about this stuff. And, you know, when we started The Curve and Vic had all these friends that were kind of coming to her, including me, being like, okay, what's this investing situation? I think being open and knowing that this is going to be so helpful for your friends and family if they're doing it too, and sharing that knowledge and trying to open the doors for people who maybe have had their eyes closed to it is actually a really productive and helpful thing that you can do for each other's futures. And I think the fact that your friends welcomed you into that space and you were open to learning, that will change your future financially massively.
Completely. And I will also say that's another benefit about London and just like the UK and Europe in general. I think people and friends are a lot more open about their finances, like number wise. Whereas in the US, there is a little bit of a barrier where people will help you and they'll educate you on like certain ways. But in terms of money itself, like exact numbers, you'll never really know what someone's salary is during the year, for example, I just find. Whereas here, I think because salaries are also lower, everyone has different financial situations, it's a lot more open. So I learn a little bit about everything from regardless of where I am in the world, but just different aspects of it.
Vic, you did a bit of research on some of the condiment companies, right?
So you said that your 4 favorite condiments.
This might have changed over time. Our research might be out of date.
But this is what they are. We're going to tell you what your favorites are.
Tell me what they are. I'm so
mustard.
intrigued. Okay, yeah.
Mustard one.
Always my number one.
Nice. Yep. Cinnamon.
Yeah, I do love cinnamon.
Soy sauce.
Yeah.
And butter.
Yeah, those are my top 4, if I had to say, I think.
So what I was trying to do was trying to figure out for anyone else who loves condiments, how do you get access to invest in condiments? And there's actually companies that own all of those condiments that are all publicly listed. So you can actually invest in your favorite condiments if you wanted to. So like mustard, I'm going to butcher this because it's probably a beautiful French word. Marley?
My?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Oh my God. I had no idea.
It's actually owned by Unilever.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But the thing to remember is that this will be a 0.00001% of revenue. But, it's still, if you really like mustard, you can really, get access to that through Unilever. Cinnamon is Schwartz. It's a UK brand. And that's owned by McCormick and Company, which is a US,
Okay, yeah.
public company. Soy sauce, Kikkoman. That's like the most common, Kikkoman.
Kikkoman, yeah.
Wow. You're looking so cultured, babe.
And that's a really massive Japanese company actually. And then butter, Lurpak is my favorite, but that wasn't publicly listed, so I was really gutted.
Why? What's the better butter?
I can't really get any of them in the UK is the issue, so I am the worst and I make my own butter here. So that's like in my farmer's market, 20 pounds, I buy cream from the dairy guy because he's a cute old man too. So like now I'm friends with the dairy guy.
And then you make your own butter.
And then I just make my own butter.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
So I love my dairy guy.
Do you make your own butter?
It's literally just cream and you whip it so that it becomes whipped cream, right? And then you go past whipped cream and then it becomes like little chunkies of butter and like the buttermilk. So it like looks like chunks in water.
Have you
and
never
you squeeze it out.
accidentally made butter?
No.
I've always whipped cream for my mum and then she'll come back into the kitchen and she'll be like, it's butter now. Oh, I can't use it because you've whipped it way too much. Yeah. Always goes into butter.
So do you add salt or like how do you make it amazing?
Yeah. So I have like great salt at my flat that I bring back from France and then I just like put it in.
So like if you never have any openings in the house, you just let us know.
Move in.
Yeah, I'm actually desperado at the moment. And what other things did you find out when you were looking into those companies? Was there any like interesting share prices or things that like came out?
Well, the only thing is that they're just such a small portion of those. Like Unilever is like a global conglomerate. If you're wanting their mustard to move the needle, you're clutching at straws.
Right.
But it just goes to show that if there was brands that you wanted to get access to, I literally just Googled the brand and then said, who owns this? And then it comes up with a share price or is this publicly listed? And so you can actually find out if a company is public listed or not and if you want to invest in it.
That's so interesting. Maybe one day, Claire, when you've got your own condiment line, you'll go public and Vic will help you go public.
Yeah.
And then we can market your business for people to buy shares in it.
Yeah.
Great.
To support actual condiment companies, not just condiments that also sell tampons and soap and shampoos and like Unilever.
A great idea.
Condiment curve. I like it. It's a good alliteration.
Wow.
Let's do it.
You are good with your alliteration.
She did go to Harvard and do literature, so you would hope so. Thank you so much for listening to Raising the Curve. These conversations are designed to teach you everything that you need to know to be better with your money, from saving to investing to talking to your friends about your salaries.
And if you liked what you heard, we would love it if you could hit the subscribe button, please.
Yes,
or
please.
Better yet, leave a review. It'll only take 5 seconds and it would really make our week, our year, our month.
Okay, lots of love. See you soon.
Bye.